Utah and Arizona State are both navigating a transition. They are pivoting from the Pac-12 to the Big 12 and thus must change some of their recruiting tactics. What must they adjust as they pursue the best players in the country? That's what we'll be discussing on today's Locked On Utes and Locked On Sun Devils crossover.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes and Locked On Sun Devils your first listen every single day. We are available on all platforms, including YouTube and wherever you may get your podcast. If this is your first time listening to either of our shows, make sure you like and subscribe. Love interacting with all of you in the YouTube comments as well as on social media, where you can follow our shows on X at Locked On Utes or at Locked On Sun Devils. Today's episode of Locked On Utes and Locked On Sun Devils is brought to you by Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code for Locked On College, all caps, no spaces, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. My name is J2 Wistricll, former intern inside the University of Utah Athletic Department. Excited to be joined by the host of Locked On Sun Devils, Richie Bradshaw, for this crossover. And Richie, when you're talking about the recruiting adjustments, I think at the end of the day, these teams do want to stay, hey, this is our brand, this is our identity. That doesn't change. But anytime you pivot out of a state like California as a conference and enter one as big as Texas, which has arguably the best high school football players up there with California, Florida, that whole thing in the country, I do think you want to focus a lot of your attention there too, because I think it is appealing for some of those top players in the country to be like, okay, I want to go somewhere I can win right away, but it'd also be awesome if I could go somewhere where I play a couple games in my home state. That's something Utah can now offer, and it's something Arizona State can now offer. So even though I don't think there's drastic changes, I do think you adjust your approach to meet some of the things in your new conference to be competing with your new rivals for recruits.
That's exactly what you need to do, is you need to adjust. It's, as the famous Billy Beane said in Moneyball, adapt or die. And that's going to be the case for Utah, for Arizona State, and for all the new teams. Colorado, Arizona, recently UCF and Cincinnati and BYU have had to adjust to that as well, is understanding that, hey, you're going to a new part of the country. You are going to want to find a way to adjust your recruitment accordingly. So one of the things that we are moving from the Pac-12 conference to the Big 12 conference, and there's a lot of differences that come with that, but more than anything, you are now going to get a lot more of the limelight compared to what you were doing. Pac-12 After Dark, as amazing as it was and as much as I'll miss it, you're going to be playing a lot more afternoon games. Mm-hmm. And that's where more people are going to be watching football. They're going to be tuned in more. And it's going to provide that national spotlight, and people are going to watch Arizona State for the first time in years. They're going to watch more Utah games than the ones that were premier matchups where it was ranked versus ranked. Now you're going to see Utah play Texas Tech. You're going to see Utah play Baylor. Like, they're going to have those games easier to access. It's a whole new streaming opportunity. You're not going to have Fubo is the main provider of the Pac-12. Like, you're going to have cable companies that are going to open up those opportunities for you. And with those new opportunities opens up new possibilities for your recruiting. And like you said, Texas is a amazing place to recruit kids. I have a joke that, like, the 3-star kids in Texas are 4 stars in any other part of the country. There's a lot of talent here, and you are going to be playing in Waco for Baylor. You're going to be playing in, of course, I can't remember where.
Texas Tech.
Yes.
You want to do that one too.
Texas Tech, Houston. Like, you're going to be all over the place and have that opportunity to show off your stuff. Like, these kids are going to see Arizona State is playing at Texas Tech, and it's like, oh, well, Arizona State was recruiting me. Let me go see them in action. Or Utah was recruiting me. Let me go see them in action. It's more accessible for these kids to take a look at these programs. You have a new opportunity open in front of you. You need to adjust accordingly. And the best thing that could have happened to you was to open up the state of Texas for yourself, more so than it was before. there's a lot of great opportunities here for the recruiting to get that much better for Arizona State, for Utah, for Colorado, for Arizona, compared to where you were before. And like you said, like you still had access to California, which is another bevy of talent, but we all know that Texas football it's different. Friday Night Lights is basically religion for those people out there. So it's an exciting thought for the 4 new teams from the former Pac-12 conference to have that opportunity in front of them now.
It's incredibly exciting. And Richie, you brought up an even bigger conversation, which I think is one we've all forgotten since becoming a part of the Big 12. The old perception of the Pac-12, how it was viewed unjustly so many times, but it was viewed as a lesser conference so often. And look, high school kids are immature. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. Some of those guys might get an offer from a Pac-12 school and be like, I would rather go to play at one of these Big 12 schools where I'm in the bigger games like that. Like there was that perception that if you're in the Pac-12, you're just not as good. I do think that is something that absolutely existed. I mean, from my time living in Texas, which of course I'm going to second everything you said about Texas high school football, by the way, like that was real where people in Texas, East Coast in general, they didn't care as much about the Pac-12. So it's not going to excite if those families don't care about it, when those kids get offered from Pac-12 schools, it's not going to excite them as much. What are the offers they're chasing are from the SEC, some of the best Big 12 schools, the Big 10, all of that. And sure, yes, the SEC and the Big 10 are moving further away from the Big 12 with some of those moves, but Big 12 is still in the next best position. And I do think Utah getting in a conference with plenty of other brands that TCU and Baylor that have kind of always had, even if they're kind of going through trying to figure things out right now, had that respect. I think that can be big for Utah and, of course, Arizona State too, as they try to get into more households and recruit, is having a broader brand basically because they're playing in a conference that everyone really doesn't have questions about, like, oh, they're the weak link, which honestly it's starting to kind of become the ACC right now with everything going on over there.
It is. And it's just such a big, massive opportunity for these schools to really dial up the amount of talent that they can get. Utah is one of those programs that it's getting to a point where it recruits itself. Like Kyle Whittingham is one of the 5 best coaches in the entire nation. And they used to take these 3-star kids and these kids that nobody really heard of, and they became household names. And now Utah is getting to a point where they can start recruiting some of the bigger names in the country. It's only going to get better now that you are in a conference that has a massive step up in multiple different ways, from the streaming opportunities to the actual level of play that you are going up against. Like, with no offense to Cal, TCU is a better opponent than Cal was. So it's a much better opportunity now for you to advertise yourself. You're going up against Oklahoma State, one of the better teams in the Big 12. You have Kansas and Kansas State and Iowa State, which are teams that were also very competitive. This is a Big 12 conference that should be wide open, which is going to leave a program like Utah a great opportunity to climb to the top. I know they're one of the favorites to win the conference. They probably should be the favorite. Like, to me, it's them or Kansas or Oklahoma State. I think that those are the 3 teams that are really up there, and then Arizona and K-State round that out for me. I think that those 5 teams are in their own little category. But if Utah is able to beat those 4 teams, these kids are going to look and they're going to go, I want to go play for Kyle Whittingham. Like, they already had a good reputation, and now look, they first year in the Big 12 and they went, I don't know, 10 wins, or maybe they win the whole thing. Like, it's that kind of an opportunity for them. And then for Arizona State, this is a program that has won 3 games in back-to-back seasons. They have a brand new approach under Kenny Dillingham. They have really done a good job of recruiting Texas. I mean, they have a whole hashtag Texas to Tempe, and they're doing a much better job of getting themselves outside of the Arizona range and the Southern California range. They're expanding themselves over to Texas. Well, here's your opportunity. You come out, you win 6 games this year, you're back to being a bowl eligible team. They're going to pay attention. Kenny Dillingham, one of the youngest, I think he is the youngest coach in college football. Like,
still might be.
Yeah, it's that kind of an opportunity for you right now to really show these young kids like, hey, this is a young, innovative, exciting head coach. This is a program that's on the rise. Or even the logic that I've heard some guys say is, I want to be the one who turns around that program. Like, it's there. It's there for the taking. Arizona State, they come out, they show that they're competitive again like they were last year. And instead of turning those close games into losses, you turn some of them into wins. Here's an opportunity for Arizona State to really get that ball rolling again. Like, there's a huge opportunity here for Utah to continue adding some of the best talents in the country, and then for Arizona State to get that rebuild going a little bit. You're looking forward to hopefully being a bowl team this year. If you find a way to do that, you start bringing in those recruits. This is a Sun Devils team that has had experience as being one of the best teams in the country. The first year of the college football playoff, they were the number 6 team in the nation at one point.
Yeah.
Like, Arizona State is a program that they've been referred to so many times that you're like blue in the face when you talk about it. But like, they're the sleeping giant is what everyone calls them. But here's your chance to wake that thing up. There's a huge opportunity for both these programs to really take themselves to the next level. And now with 12 teams in the playoff, who knows? In 4 years, maybe Utah and Arizona State are both in that conversation on an annual basis.
Yeah, when you look at Utah, they would be classified as a current giant. And when you look at Arizona State, to your point, kind of a sleeping giant. So which one how are those teams going to do this fall? Well, one thing that's fun is they're going to come face to face. So obviously everything about football is about winning games. These two teams will be looking to do that against each other. We're going to do a too early preview of that matchup in one moment and talk about the general state of each program overall. But first, we have to talk to you about our great friends at Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app, they actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. They have great last-minute deals, all-in-price views from their seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime truly takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets, which I absolutely love. And that's not all Gametime does. Gametime has so many fantastic deals, whether you're talking about zone or flash deals, which allow you to get the best price you can. If you do a flash deal, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on selected seats ahead of the game, or with zone deals, you can save even more when you choose a section and let Gametime choose the seats. How about the panoramic seat view you get with the seat view option, which allows you to know exactly what kind of a deal you're getting before you have to put your hard-earned cash down for it. Also, that low price guarantee, where Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. The Gametime ticket coverage, where is also a fantastic feature. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So you can take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. You can download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEG, capital LO, and all of college, no spaces in there, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Richie, we touched on a little bit there with Utah being a current giant, and we said Arizona State having the potential of Arizona State is higher than the potential, I believe, for a team like Utah. And there's some Utah fans that might not like it, but the overall history does say when Arizona State is operating at their best, they can be a top 10 team and things of that nature. And Utah I think they can get up there a year, but hard for them to kind of consistently stay there because of some of the turnover and changes we often see in general. But let's focus on the direction both these programs are going in. For Utah, I think they're in an outstanding place. When you're talking about the Utah football program, even if Kyle Whittingham steps away, I believe the culture is in place for them to continue to succeed. I love the way they are bringing in recruits that fit their culture, and that culture stays the same because they're not relying too heavily on transfers. They do a good job picking up transfers like a Dorian Singer, who fit a specific need that they have, but it's not like the entire offense or defense looks drastically different and they got to formulate chemistry out of nowhere. That's where I think this Utah team has done a great job building their program. I think because of Cam Rising and some of the other top returners like a Brant Keithy they're in a great position in 2024 and beyond. I expect them to continue to be successful. How do you feel like this team is progressing for the Arizona State Sun Devils, though, under Kenny Dillingham?
They're doing a good job. And similar to what Utah has worked on under Kyle Whittingham, is Kenny Dillingham is focusing on culture building. And one of the things that he's really preached on is we want guys that want to be here. So there's been 5-stars that have visited Arizona State and 5-star kids that have received offers from Arizona State, but they may not be a fit here because there's more of an onus on having guys that want to be here, having guys that understand what it means to turn a program around that is in the dumps right now and make them relevant again. And some of these kids may be focused on other things. They may be focused on NIL. They may be focused on getting to the pros. And right now, that's not where Arizona State is. So getting these guys in here has been probably the biggest task for Kenny Dillingham right now, establishing that culture, making sure that the guys who come here are guys that are going to be foundational pieces for the first 3 years of their career, 4 years, 5 years, however long that they end up in Tempe. It's about building culture. And we know that at the end of the day, those are the best teams in the country, are the teams that build a culture. So Arizona State's focused on that. And they're focused on getting the recruiting up. They're keeping kids in state. They're attacking Texas. They're still going after Southern Cal. They're creating all these different opportunities to really take the recruiting to the next level. And you're seeing it get better and better each year. They currently have a top 25 recruiting class for next year. Hopefully that trend continues to keep going for them. But it's a big work in progress. I mean, Kenny Dillingham inherited a terrible situation because of everything that happened with Herm Edwards and all the recruiting violations that they committed during COVID. Like, this was about as big a rebuild project as you're going to inherit. So they're doing a good job being able to put their best step forward and slowly but surely getting this program back on track to becoming that sleeping giant that people have referred to it as. It's a process, but it's been a good process so far. I think that you're seeing a lot of what Kenny Dillingham start to come to fruition already in year 2. You're hoping that by year 4, year 5, Arizona State is a perennial 9-win team, and they're a team that's going to good bowl games. Or again, with a 12-team playoff, maybe you're finding a way to be one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the Big 12 and put yourself in that conversation. But it is a process. And right now, your goal this season is to figure out what tier you are in the Big 12. Like I said, there's 5 teams in the first tier within the Big 12. Utah, Kansas, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Arizona. Are you closer to that tier, or are you closer to the bottom tier with Houston, with BYU, with Cincinnati? You need to figure out where you are at. And you're hoping that the progression from year 1 to year 2 is going to get you closer to the top half of the Big 12 compared to the bottom half. And I think that's pretty much where you're at this year, is kind of a measuring stick season of where are we right now.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of teams are going to be doing as they assess their new place in the Big 12. To your point, we mentioned Utah and Arizona State are going to play each other. And fun fact I was going to throw at you, Richie. Do you know the age gap between Coach Dillingham and Kyle Whittingham?
Honestly, I don't know how old Whittingham is off the top of my head, so
I had to look it up.
I guess at least 20 years, right?
It's 30, exactly.
No kidding.
64 versus 34. That's the draft. That's the difference we have in experience. And I'm a big fan of Kenny Dillingham. I like a lot of things that Arizona State is doing. Unfortunately, I think it is a tall task to beat Utah, even though you guys do get them at home this season. I expect Utah. Yeah,
we're not.
Do you know your last win against Utah? I should throw another quiz question at you. I guess
not off the top of my head. It's been a minute because they should have won in 2021, but they didn't close the door for the second half, and Utah was like, we're going to beat you. And lo and behold, they did. 2019, 2018, somewhere in that ballpark.
2018.
Yeah.
2018. 4 straight wins for Utah. Like we said, we both expect it to be 5, but something interesting to monitor for sure is how this rivalry changes shape over the future. Can Arizona State reach their potential? Can Utah stay at the top? That is something we await to see. Now, we just were at odds a little bit talking about Utah versus Arizona State. But Richie, I like it better when we come together. And I think there's one thing I can do that will get you a little bit more of us united, and that is crap on Arizona. Arizona, I want to pose a question. Are they still a threat? And I'll just turn it over to you like that. Are they still a threat to win the Big 12 this year?
They are. This is a team that is very well constructed. They've got one of the best kept secrets in the country at quarterback and at receiver with Noah Fifita and T. McMillan. They've got a very quality running back coming through the transfer portal from Ole Miss. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. You've got the offensive lineman who.
I think they got 3 returning starters up front, so a decent group there too.
Yeah, they got Sicario Davis on defense. They've got a handful of guys at linebacker that are really good. This is a well-constructed team. Now, the biggest question is how do you play going from Jedd Fisch to, of course, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Their new head coach.
I cannot either, so I apologize.
Yep. Sorry, U of A fans. I'm being as nice as I can right now. So they are a well-constructed team, though. And it's a very talented team. And there's going to be an expectation this year.
As their head coach.
Yes, thank you. There's going to be an expectation that they take that next step forward. They were a 10-win team last year. Can they be that again? Can they try and usurp a Utah for being the top team in the Big 12? That's going to be their big challenge this year. But it's going to be a big task for them when you're changing head coaches, and they lost talent. They lost a lot of talent. Jacob Cowing is gone. Jonah Coleman is gone. They are trying to take that next step forward, even though you lost some seriously good players. So they are a threat, but this is a big challenge for them this year. And they may not be ready for that challenge. But again, I still have you in that top tier. So until further notice.
Yeah, I think they belong up top amongst those teams, but I do think I would have the teams with continuity higher for the most part because it's different under change. And Noah Fifita is talented enough, as is McMillan, to make me eat those words. But I'd be surprised if they got to 10 wins again. I think it's incredibly tough with those changes. They lost a lot on defense too. The defensive line in particular, great, got some good linebacker play. I think you did a good job bringing that up. But and offensively, I still expect them to be well. But it is hard to replace a guy like Coleman. I think he is a phenomenal running back. And I think even though you get a good transfer in there, his loss will be missed. And you need other playmakers on the outside to do things. Who are going to be those guys who step up next to McMillan? That's something we have to kind of wait and see how it ends up playing out too. So do I think Arizona is still going to be a threat this year to win the Big 12? I will say yes because of Noah Fifita. But right. I think that's a lot for him to shoulder, and I do expect them to fall short of expectations. I think they'll be in that 7 to 8. I'll go 8 wins right now. I know, yeah, fingers crossed for Richie over there on that one. I think they'll be more closer to that 8-win range this year. Maybe I could definitely see 9 too. But look, I mean, coming to Utah is incredibly tough. And I know they demolished Utah, when they came down there. But this team is totally different under Cam Rising. There were a lot of other injuries this Utah team had. Even compared to their normal season, they were down their top 3 defensive players, and their 4th one was sick in the game. So it'd be a drastically different team. Utah doesn't lose at home. I expect Utah to take care of business against Arizona, but we do have to still give them the courtesy of considering them a threat. At least for now, Richie, like you said, hopefully not for too long.
Hopefully not for too long. It's a good team, but again, the biggest change is you're going from Jedd Fisch to Brent Brennan. Like that is a learning curve. You're going from a guy who was quickly turning himself into one of the best recruiters in the country to where did Brennan come from? Cal Poly? Like this is not Cal Poly. I can't remember where he came from, but
you just need to stop talking about
it. It is a smaller school. It's gonna be a change for them. And again, you're in a new conference with a lot more talented teams. Are you in that tier 1? I have you there now. You may not be there at the end of the year. You could be closer to an 8-win team than you are a playoff team, which is the expectation that a lot of their fans have right now. So you're going to find out, but I'm with you. Take Noah Fifita off this team. They are not one of the top teams in the conference. He is a very good football player, but it is a lot to shoulder for him. And there's going to be U of A fans that think he is a Heisman contender, and you're going to find out this year if he is good enough to be at that point. And who is playing next to McMillan? We're going to find out, because he had 1,400 yards last year, but he also had Jacob Cowing, who was able to eat up a lot of the underneath work. There's going to be a lot of pressure on McMillan to have another 1,400-yard season. I don't know how realistic that is. So it's tough. Is he talented enough? Absolutely. He looks like a first-round pick for next year's draft. But this is a tough year upcoming for U of A. And for the 100th time, you got a new head coach. Let's see how it shakes out.
It's going to be fascinating to see how it shakes out, as is the recruiting in the Big 12, how Utah and Arizona State progress in the Big 12. It'll be something we're obviously keeping a close eye on, or should I say locked on. I apologize for the absolute horrendous joke. That means it's time to get out of here. Richie, great joining you, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always good to talk ball. And just to endear myself to Utah fans, I still really like your team. And I think by the end of the year, Lander Barton is going to make me feel very, very silly for leaving him off of my preseason list, which I immediately regretted when I put that out there.
I hope Lander brings it up. He's like, yeah, I saw this one guy left me off his, his preseason team.
This dude for Locked On, I've never even heard of them. But yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, he's good at football.
He is good at football, but it's a conference loaded with good football players. Can't wait to see how it all shakes out. That's going to do it for this crossover between Locked On Utes and Locked On Sun Devils. But we'll be back with you all very soon with more content.